Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We're very excited.
And today we're excited we have Barbara Withon with us. She's an international peace activist, award-winning author, publisher, psychic channel, composer, and performer, and co-founder of Conflict Revolution World Peace, one person at a time, starting with self, a revolutionary way to resolve conflicts of the psyche as a pathway to world peace based on her work channeling the angels and Albert Einstein. She is author of 6 nonfiction books on metaphysics, including Imagining Einstein, Essays on the M Theory, World Peace, and the Science of Compassion. Barbara teaches and trains conflict revolution in the classroom and on Zoom and is currently on a world peace tour, calling out to the participation of the willing for a worldwide nonviolent action to end the age of war, starting with self. She's traveling the world training conflict revolution and presenting her Einstein's unified field theory, maps of human consciousness, and the science of compassion. So, welcome, Barbara. We're excited to have you on with us today.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
So, you channel Albert Einstein. This intrigues me. So, can you tell me tell us a little bit about that and how that started for you?
Oh, it's crazy, right? I people think I might have just woke up one day and said, "Oh, I think I'll talk to Albert Einstein," but it was really kind of a long, convoluted path that led me to him, but really consolidated down. I started writing music when I was about 12, and
Wow.
I left high school, went right out on the road. It was 1972, and I had enough music to play original, and that was all I ever wanted to do. But that process of writing music is almost the same as channeling. You go into the nothing and you listen, and then you pull out stuff and you organize it so it makes sense. I had a friend in high school whose mom was a psychic, and she gave us readings. So I had readings with Eunice for probably 10 years right out of high school. And so when I started automatic writing, I think that was like 1987. So some years later, I knew what it was, but it was still really exciting and intriguing. And so I followed it. And I think it was 1993. I started to want to do some group channeling where I would sit down and talk to a bunch of people and see I had no idea, I had no expectation, but I loved Jane Roberts and Edgar Casey and I couldn't find anybody in my regular clientele until Teresa came to my door. She was a referral. And then she sent like 6 of her girlfriends and then her best friend. And from that configuration, we started to channel these groups. And it was just crazy. They said they were angels, which was new to me. I was kind of just an antenna. I didn't think of myself as talking to dead people or angels or anything. And they said they were here. They had this theoretical process of how they thought humans could reach world peace, and they needed some humans to test it on. And so we would channel and they'd give us all this instruction. And then eventually we had our first fight and we put it to the test, and it was so incredible. And we were just amazingly hooked on these angels. So when we published our first book in 1997, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority, the year later, some paranormal tabloid in London had heard about me and asked me if I would do an interview with Princess Diana on the 1-year anniversary of her death.
Wow.
And I'd never done such a thing. It's like, what are you talking about? How do by this point, the people who had passed on were coming to me and asking me to get messages to their loved ones. So, but, I thought, well, let's give it a try. And so I typed out everything, and then I read it back and I was just blown away. And they flew me to New York and they interviewed me for 5 hours, but they didn't want it. I suppose because there wasn't enough dirt, about Camilla.
Yeah,
but Diana would never have said anything about her anyway. I don't think.
Probably not. Yeah.
Not even breathe her name through my lips. But anyway, so my agent and I were like, well, maybe there's other famous dead people. We made this big list, and I'd go to them in my head, and some would say yes, and then others would say no. And we got to John F. Kennedy, which I recently published that interview on my Substack, Barbara with on the Substack. As part of it was a book I published, Party of 12 of these interviews, because as we're going to release this information, I guess now, of what happened to him, so we can see if what he said in 1998 was accurate. But anyway, John Kennedy said, this is not your idea. Put your list away. We'll tell you who's next. And Einstein wasn't even on our list. How sad is that? It wasn't even on our list. But when he came up in the queue and I went to channel him and I let him speak through me, it was every single reading I'd ever done.
Wow.
From the way back. And that took me a while. Because what? And so in 2005, I did just a special book just for him, Imagining Einstein. And it was crazy. He was telling me this unified field theory, and with these maps of human consciousness and the scientific definition of compassion as the fifth fundamental force. And I'm not a scientist. I'm not a mathematician. All I ever wanted to be was rock star. So, this was all like, what? I have to go out and tell the world that compassion is the fifth fundamental force. And so I wrote it like I heard it. And that was the book that got me kind of all around the world, got invited all around the world to teach and train. And so that's kind of how I got going.
Wow. That's so interesting. And I think it's such a relevant thing right now with just the way, the feel of the world and things like that, to be talking about this compassion and about this non-violent way of acting and bringing the peace to the world. So I think that's, such an important message that you're bringing through and channeling through with these guides and Albert Einstein and things like that, to let the world know this is really what we need right now.
It is.
And the work that, that you do, that I do with people doing the work and, trying to evolve ourselves, trying to be more awakened. What my message is all of that work is contributing to world peace.
Yes.
Everything we do contributes, even though it looks kind of crazy out there right now, but it's where it begins. So sometimes, because you do the work, it's so hard sometimes. It's work to do your shadow work and, be responsible for everything. And but then to think that you're actually, this is the work of world peace. So that's like what I hope people can hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there a way, or is there something that you would suggest to people about, waking up to this compassion within themselves and knowing what their way of potentially serving into this grand idea of compassion and peace in the world?
Yes, we have a kind of a very simple outline of what conflict revolution is. So conflict revolution is our work. It's not conflict resolution where you go out and you negotiate with the person you're conflicted with and make sure you're talking in the right way and blah, blah, blah. This is all about looking at our own inner selves as per these maps and this kind of formula that he gave us. But the real basics are, we work with what we call the three human dimensions. So there's emotion, intuition, and intellect. And we call these the three spiritual organs because they're like the heart and the kidney and the stomach. They all have different things to do, but they work together to make a healthy body. So as these three human dimensions, emotion in the solar plexus, intuition in the heart, and intellect in the head. And then we have what we call a witness, which probably everybody who's listening here understands what that, when we witness ourselves and take the time to kind of step aside and take note. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what is intuition telling me? So we help people develop this kind of expanded awareness of their own operating system, and we do it on a daily basis. So it's not something you wait until everything's crashing and burning and you have to rush and do. It's about maintaining this kind of self-responsibility for these three these spiritual organs that we have. And there's a way that we say that we're aligned to compassion. And that is when all of our emotions are flowing, because so many times we don't want to feel, all those uncomfortable ones, or we got stuff down there. So we use our breath to move them. And as we move that up into our heart, intuition is going to tell us it's going to be at this impelling, like it's going to impel us to do something, to take a step, one step. And it's the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole system, because that's how compassion is. It's working for the good of everybody.
Right.
And then when that moves up into the intellect, this is where we have most of the conflict, because this is where ego is. And this is where, God knows why, we were given free will operating out of here. So when we turn the steering wheel to the left, it's the intellectual part of us that's activating that neural network that does that. It's not the intuition. The intuition can only be like a good wife impelling her husband, the divine masculine, to do what's best for everything. And then the intellect, when we're aligned to compassion, the intellect is not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow or worrying about this or projecting. The intellect is there in present moment, being aware and listening for intuition. And then when it hears that impelling, to actually do that. And it's so simple. How many times have all of us had that intuitive impelling? Even if you don't think you're intuitive, you are. But to rest, you get this overwhelming body feeling, just rest.
Yeah.
And everything about it is like, oh, yeah, you're free. And then the mind goes, well, wait a minute, I can't rest. I've got 16 things to do. And then off you go.
Isn't that true? Isn't that true?
And then, your body suffers. Probably you get cranky. You start to have conflict. So that's kind of the process of conflict resolution. And you'll see everybody sees parts of their own processes and, kind of these universal ideas of meditation and breath work. And it's all in there.
It certainly is.
Yeah. And I think that it's really important to get in tune with our bodies and with ourselves and start to honor what our bodies is saying. Like you're saying, like with resting, is to, take that ego and say, just go sit on the shelf for a little bit, because my body is telling me I need to rest right now. I need to rejuvenate. I need to, heal my body. And how do we work on healing our bodies if we're in this constant state of movement all the time?
Yes. And Einstein says that at the very root of every single conflict in the world, and that's everything, world wars to whatever, is this conflict between the intellect and the intuition. When intuition impels us and we don't do what we're told by intuition, then we're not acting for the good of the whole system. And this idea of making decisions for the good of the whole, people kind of get sometimes overwhelmed by, how will I know? No. The good of your system. Intuition is going to tell you what's best for you. And you have to listen and then comply in order to be aligned to what's good for you. But of course, ego doesn't like to do that a lot of the time.
Yeah, ego does like to rear its ugly head, doesn't it?
It's so necessary, but it's just been, in control far, far too long. So it's retraining.
It is. And I think when you're actually sitting down, I mean, that is when you're getting intuition, when you're quiet and when you find, like you were saying, the breath work and some of that. And, it was interesting this morning because I didn't have to work today at my normal job, so I had time. So it was like, oh, I can, get up and have this beautiful breakfast that I want to have and, find some time for some yoga and some time to sit in some meditation. And it just gave me a whole different sense of how it is than when I'm running around in this frantic state to, oh, I got to get here and I got to do that. So just in that, for me, it showed me how important that is to carve out that time to do that. And I think so many of us feel like caring for the self and allowing that to come into our lives is like a chore.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. I was the same way this morning. I was going to run out the door and get things done. And I thought, you know what? I just feel like having a cup of tea and sitting back and getting ready for, the podcast and that today. So I forced myself to do it. And after I was here like 10 minutes, I thought, whoa, this is nice. you know, I, so yeah, you do have to take time for you, you really do.
And I think it's such a universal intuitive message that everyone can relate to. So then
Yes.
when you expand this idea that, wait a minute, intuition is going to tell me more. Intuition is going to tell me a lot more if I sit and give it this space. So anytime, and this has taken a lot of training for me, and Barb, we've been through years and years of cultural ingrained, and then getting to this older age where you kind of let go of things. I'm able to step back, like when I'm like that, like, and just go, wait a minute, and just stop and turn in and listen. And yeah, sometimes you don't want to do it. I was like, what?
Yes.
I have to, what? Okay. But when you do, I think that's when the miracles and the synchronicity really take shape.
I agree with that.
You're so, yeah, so true. So true. Because I'm hyperactive anyways. And so calming myself down is a job in itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then getting the mind to calm down after I've got the body to calm down is another session, sort of thing. So when they do finally come together, it's a beautiful thing. And I like to do it. I do it through exercise a lot because it makes me stop, even though I'm still moving the body, but my mind becomes focused, if that makes sense. And so
Yes.
then I get a lot of my stuff comes together then. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, and we have that power to do those things. We give it away so
Yes.
often, like, oh no, I can't, or no, and then it's like, yes, I can, but will I?
Yes.
Will I is a
Yeah.
really important question. And I think, like, do you still do your music then?
Not in the same veracity that I have, and as I
Yeah.
shifted into realizing I had a different destiny, and honestly, thank God, because when I look at the state of the music industry today, it's kind of scary. But as I moved into that direction, it was really easy to, along the road as I was teaching and training, there was always there was a pub downstairs of the workspace that we had in Oslo, and she had music space, and the workshop that my promoter did in Bucharest in Romania was in a jazz club, like during the day. We rented it out, and there was beautiful, grand piano, and so I got to incorporate it. So I still have a lot of activity, but it was never like those years where I was just on the road constantly.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
So do you think that sound then kind of just led me into my question that I want to know is, do you think that sound and music, beats, whatever you want to say, is imperative to our life to bring, I don't know, a sense of belonging, or I'm not really sure what it is, but some kind of sense through these sounds and that connection to music?
Well, I think because we're all vibration, right? We're all energy vibrating. We are music. We're the universe is music, and sometimes there's beautiful metaphors in the channeling about we're singing ourselves into consciousness. And funny, my first automatic writing, which happened spontaneously as I was writing this letter. So I knew what it was, but I said, "So, well, who are you?" And they said, "We're sound." And having grown up since I was so high, absorbed in writing music, I was fine with that. I was like, okay, good, I got it. But yeah, and then in the evolutionary part, when I'm showing the unified field theory, and the source of everything is in the center of the earth, and it's like a black hole. And we have these compilations of consciousness. You have a compilation, I have a compilation. And out of those compilations, this wave comes from the center of the planet to the surface, where then the lens, where we're sitting and we're all separate. But along this wave are those three human dimensions of emotion, intuition, and intellect. So emotion is really, it's the primordial soup of the basis of all physical reality. And then when it splits into two, it becomes sound. And that's the voice, basically the voice of God. And then you get to intellect, and it's just all heck breaks loose. We get so much going on. But yeah, I think sound is like I used to say, and God said, let there be light. So first there was the sound, the command, let there be light, and then there was light.
Yeah. I love music. I'm a music girl. And if I don't put music in, I don't play. I wish I had. I always was intrigued with the piano. Didn't go there. But anyway, I just love music, and it gives me so much vitality and everything else in the day when I listen to tunes, and it just puts me in a different playing field. I call it a playing field, to take me in all different directions. So I kind of sort of understand, other than I sing or anything like that. I like to sing.
It's great. I always tell people that no one should even think about if you sing good or bad, because singing is so, you're taking in breath, big breaths, and then you're forming words that are making meaning, and there's melody and there's rhythm. It's such a glorious expression that I hate when people are like, well, I can't really sing. Who cares? Do it. Open your mouth.
Sing it anyway.
Sing.
And there's so much healing for the body in singing or humming or any of that stuff. It's like you can't have anxiety and be depressed and be even in that moment. You can right after, but in that particular moment, when you're engaged in that music and you're singing or you're humming or you're something, everything else falls away, because we can't do that and have that, talking inside of our head with our ego. So it's so important for our bodies.
Yeah. And that movement of breath. I was on the road for years and years and years, and playing 4 or 5 nights a week, sometimes 4 or 5, 6 hours a night. That's a lot of, with every song, a 3-minute song, and then exhaling. And I often thought that was such a way that kept me healthy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. 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 I'd love to hear you sing sometime.
Barbwith.com.
Okay.
BARBWITH.com. Yeah, that's my music site. I've got some videos. I just did a new video of one of my favorite songs. I haven't got it up there yet, but I'll go. Well, I bet it's up there by now. But yeah, a song I wrote called Dancing on the Beach. And what's so great about today's modern technology is that there's all of these like content websites where you can get music and videos and graphics and all these incredibly, I'm sure they're young digital artists able to create, videos of black holes. And so I was able to go on and I just did a search for Dancing on the Beach and came up with so many beautiful images. So I just did a little video, got me kind of re-excited about doing some more of that with my music.
Good for you. Good for you. I'll go and listen. I definitely will listen.
Well, and I think it's important that you do stuff like that because when you were talking about that, like you can see the joy within you. And I think that's another thing that we really need to bring back into our forefront in order to bring this peace on earth is to find these things that bring us that utter joy. Because I think so many of us, because we just get so trapped in this hamster wheel of life, we forget what brings us true joy.
Well, we forget, and then we think that we're like destined. Like I don't have joy, and that's just how I am. It's like, no,
Exactly.
we have to cultivate these things. We have to cultivate courage. We've got to cultivate joy. And sometimes it's not going to be, but people are afraid to like go get their passion. And I just, time is ticking. I'm going to be, well, no, I just recently turned 70 and it was just yesterday. I was 12 years old writing these songs. So
I know.
get out there and find that joy.
It's true. It's like go ahead.
Go ahead.
Same with me. Like I like to get up when I'm listening to my tunes. I like to dance too, and I don't want to lose that because we lose our emotion anyway as we mature in life, right? And so I don't want to lose that because I want to keep that flow going because I think that that's a natural thing that we should do, right? We got the body flowing, got everything inside of us flowing in motion too, which has got to keep us healthy and it's got to keep our mind in a better space as well. So when I giggle to myself because when I walk sometimes if I'm like tunes, I find myself stopping for a minute doodling on my way. I think it's just feeling the moment, living in the moment. It's so important. I'm 73, so I totally understand how it's important for us to still grab hold of that to give us all that peace that we need, and if we could avoid, we're trying to say that to the people that are younger than us saying, grab the moment, it's worth it. It's worth every moment that you have. Right.
And don't you think there's this whole new world of TikTok where people I love just flipping through and I don't know how they come up, but just ordinary people some of them are dancing, some of them are complaining, but a lot of them, there's like these dance challenges and it's just I just think that's so fun. And to see like grandma and grandpa doing their dance challenge.
Oh yeah.
it just brings so much joy and we need that. God knows we need that right now, I think.
Yes, we do. Yes.
We do need that. We need that break away from all of the garbage that comes into our ears. Like I don't watch the news, to be honest, because I just find it so negative and I just find it like you can find out the information. I get it. You turn on your computer, there's a couple of snippets. If I'm interested, I'll read it. But I don't want to hear it because there's so much negativity in the world. And I think how can we focus on peace and showing up with joy in the world if we're allowing ourselves to have this constant bombardment of all the negativity?
Yeah.
Consumed with all the crap. Yeah.
And for many years, I took a break from all of my spiritual stuff. I became an investigative journalist. And I started investigating this. And then that led me to this, which is both sides of the aisle. And it doesn't matter. These people don't want to hear this, and these people don't want to hear this. And now they're just going to fight with each other to convince each other they're right. And I did it for a long time. I was very successful at like protecting some water and doing some good things. But I thought, I can't do this anymore. It's not about us versus them. It's about us trying to figure out how to all get along and live together. And that's why I love conflict resolution, because if I could go to every politician and every leader of every country and every right and left wing fight that's going on and say, start with yourself. Start with yourself before anybody comes to the table. Take that revolution around. And when somebody triggers you, you know how it is. You get triggered and you're like, and then you get obsessed in your head. Well, that person did this and they did that. And listen to what those messages are. Parboil them down into what's the gist of it? Oh, he didn't respect you. Okay, let's watch you. Let's see where you don't respect yourself. How many times is your intuition going to tell you no, and you're going to say yes? That's disrespect. So there's this
Right.
way that it doesn't dismiss that he might have been truly a jerk, but let's start with us first, and then we won't demand that the jerk is held responsible for my feelings. Then I can deal with the jerk. But yeah, that's what I'm excited about, because I think you mentioned that I'm on this kind of perpetual world tour until my time is up. My parents lived to be in their 90s, mid 90s, so it could be a long time. But um,
Yeah.
I I'm looking for the participation of the people who are willing to do these thought experiments. Just even little, you don't have to even come to my website or take a class or read a book. People who are listening here, they do this. They're aware. They want to be better people. They want to be more thriving. They want to take their lives. And people don't come for tarot readings just to find out the future. They want to know more about who they are. And that's what I'm excited about in this day and age, that there's so many people who, like us, are just ready to, like, let's bring it together. Come on.
Yeah.
I agree because I just think, yeah, it isn't like you said, us against them. If everybody could just realize we're all in the same game together, we all kind of have the same goal to get to the end, presumably
Comfortably.
healthy and joyful. Like, why are we fighting all this stuff? And so much of it really doesn't matter. I mean, I know it's a lot more ego than it is, bringing into that spirituality side of us, or, just allowing ourselves to just be, not even be spiritual, just be.
Yeah. And let people be. And I've done I in my activist days, I was us versus them. And now I'm in this new mindset of, it's kind of a game, like, how can I make peace here? How can I approach this person who, you know, eh, maybe somebody doesn't like or doesn't think is this, or how can I get through some of those defenses that people have when they're projecting? Because that's what it is. They're projecting on them and they're projecting on them. And it's like, so, and I think we have so much more power to make a difference when we have
We
that
do.
mindset.
Yeah. We truly do. Yes, people would just pay attention to the people that are trying to say there's better things there. And there's all these different ways of finding it. And that was what the podcast, to find your bliss. What is it that gives you what you want, that takes you to the place that you need to be you, right? To really sit in that moment of your own self. So, with talking to people like yourself and other people that we speak to, it gives them all these avenues that they can travel down to find exactly what they're looking for. And hopefully it's in their heart and in their whole body that makes them go, finally, I found my wish, right? Fulfill it.
I
Right.
think that's what humanity's looking for.
Yeah.
I saw this little snippet from an old clip from, I don't know, the 50s or something, of um, some metaphysician saying, depression, anxiety, you're not depressed. You don't have anxiety. You lack creativity. And I thought that's so brilliant, because Einstein always said we have this energy, right? And if we don't use it, because compassion is the fifth fundamental force, the creative intelligence that's creating all this. If we don't create, it gets stuck in us. It gets an abscess, and
Yes.
then you start to feel like helpless, and then the depression, and then but if we, I always said, if you give these people something to do, or when I'm depressed, if I can have something creative to engage in, it really uplifts from those conditions.
Mhm.
Yes.
And it's a finding what your creative passion is, right? Which is why why don't we just do more of that? Why don't we go walk in nature? Because I mean, and I think when people hear creativity, they think, "Oh, I got to be like an artist or whatever." But that's not it. It's more of a doing something that brings you joy and lights you up when you're doing it. So if walking is your creativity and, looking at the leaves and, whatever with the colors, and I get lost in the woods myself, like I see faces in the trees and I just, so
Mhm.
for me, it's a whole creative thing when I'm out walking and doing that. So maybe that's somebody's thing. Maybe it
Yeah.
is painting, maybe it's singing, whatever. But I truly feel like creativity at its base is really just finding that joy that lights us up.
Yes, and I think creativity, people don't think of it as, okay, so you're in this situation. You've got creativity. Use your creativity to find some creative solutions. Instead we sit and go, oh, well, woe is me and this is bad. And then it's like, okay, let's find some solutions. How many can you come up with? I'm really good at that. I can always come up with 5 or 6 things to just move it along a few steps.
Yeah. Well, and I
I keep saying
find,
that to
go ahead.
I keep saying that to my sister right now. My sister's not well, but she used to play guitar and sing. And I said to her, "Why did you pick up the guitar and sing?" She goes, well, I'm on oxygen. I don't sing very well. I said, "Yeah, but you used to finger pick like you were brilliant at finger picking. So why wouldn't you at least try to do that? Because that gave you joy, right?" And so I said, "Go get yourself another guitar. Even if it's a cheap one, go get it, put it in your lap, and play with it."
And if you can't sing, maybe there's a young person who wants to sing. I'm all big about
Yeah,
mentoring and passing down what we have to others if she can't. But
absolutely.
it would be my guess that that singing might be part of that healing.
I would think,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Because I think the answers are in there, and I find when we're being creative, a lot of times, even if we're singing or something, we're quiet in our mind, and so we allow that space for that answer to come to us about, hey, this is really bothering me. Okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to play my guitar. I'm going to sing. I'm going to do whatever. It quiets that space that we allow that to come in now and say, oh, here's the answer to your question. Oh, well, okay. I guess I don't need
yes.
to be anxious about that anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to step back out of because all that stuff is here in the head, right? In the ego, it's all in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be able to step out of that and see that there's more. Wow, there's a heart and an intuition and emotion and a body and a witness. And yeah, it really helps to open things up.
Exactly.
It does. It's interesting because I was sort of going through a little bit of a funk there myself. And so I was like, okay, I feel like I'm on this hamster wheel of life and there's not off, and I'm not connecting spiritually the way that I want to. And so I'm like, okay,
Excuse me.
what am I going to do to change this? So I'm a terrible crocheter. I couldn't crochet something straight if my life depended on it. I actually joked with my granddaughter and said, I'm going to make all you grandkids a crooked blanket, and that'll be your memory of me when I pass, right? But I've got back into my crochet. I've got back into some of my yoga. I've got back into some of the creative things that I love to do. And it's interesting because I'm now finding that space where I'm like, oh, okay, I can be open to these answers now that are coming to me. Where when I was just in this, hamster wheel,
Um,
I couldn't because I couldn't hear anything. So I just, I guess I just wanted to share that because as a personal experience, that's how it shifted for me. And I think if people hear that, maybe they're like, oh, maybe I'll try this, right? Because I think,
And that's aligning to compassion. Because what you did was you got out of the head, you let some emotion flow, you listened to for some intuitive creative stuff that sparked you, and off you go. You took different made different choices, and that's what God gave us. I mean, that's what we have to do.
yes, I agree. And I think like your messages to people, when you start at that level, and then it just spreads outwards, you have this conflict revolution where, or resolution, right?
Revolution. It's a revolution.
But where people are coming and showing up different to, political parties or what have you, we're showing up different in the world. And I think that's such an important message that you're sharing.
Well, and what I think is so profound is that these are really basic ideas. Like, for example, if you walk in a room and you're, hunting bear and you're pissed and you want to find somebody to blame, you have a profound effect on that room.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
walk in and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I am going to be the shining light in this room and I'm going to just give my love everywhere, you make a profound, that's not brain surgery. But people don't understand how many times we can choose to put that energy forward. But we get so caught up in wanting to be right, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that a lot today.
Oh, I know.
People, people wanting to be right, and arguing about their righteousness. Yeah, because it just ruins the conversation with a group of people, right? Because you know that they're not a changeable kind of individual. So yeah, give it up, go somewhere else.
I like to remind them that the moral high ground, there's pretty thin air up there.
I like that.
Gotta be careful up there. So
That's so true.
So
Oh, it is so true. I just, this is our passion for us. So this is such a great thing to be able to get this message out to people because this is exactly what Mom and I think is, start with yourself and just let it move outwards. And I think if we all started, not in a egotistical, narcissistic way, thinking of ourselves, but getting in tune with ourselves and spreading that light out, I think our world would be such a different place. And I do believe in my heart of hearts that is how the world is moving to. It's just taking a little bit of time. We could all use a kick in the butt, right?
Well, when I started doing conflict revolution, well, I think I started teaching in 1999, but when I started channeling groups and doing the idea of world peace, that was at beauty pageants. Like, what do you want? World peace. Nobody really cared. I've probably done over 100 podcasts in the past year and a half, maybe 2 years. Everybody's ready. Everybody wants to know what can we do? Because the world is not at peace. What can we do? It's just enormously different. And I hate to say that it took this long and that it took this much whatever is going on in the world that got us so crazy to have humans want to know what they can do to contribute to peace. I'm excited.
Me too.
I'm ready for it. I'm absolutely ready for it. Well, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, you can go to barbarawith.com, BARBARAWITH.com. And there's everything. And that's going to lead you over to my books are all on synergyalliance.llc, but they're all interconnected. But Barbara With is where you could, if you wanted to have a reading, I would give your listeners a special where buy a half-hour reading and I'll give you an hour reading.
Wow. So, thank you so much. That's very gracious of you.
You bet.
It is very gracious.
Yes. And you're also on Instagram?
I am. The Psychic Sorority on Instagram, Barbara With on Facebook, Barb With on YouTube, and barbwith.com is the music.
Perfect. Well, that's wonderful.
Okay, super.
Well, we've loved this and you've just had so much information for us. And I think, you're sharing your light out with everybody. So if you had a final thought or something that you wanted to share with everybody, what would it be?
Well, this might be a little cliche, but become the change. Become the change. Let's start with ourselves. And that's going to lighten up the world a whole lot, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think that's a wonderful message. I've always liked that one because it's so simple yet so profound.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing space with us, and we hope you come back another time to share more of your wisdom because I feel like there's just so much packed in you that you have to share out.
I'd love to come back. Thank you so much for asking me too. It's just, I love this work and I love meeting people like you. And I got 2 today. So that was lovely. And we'll
Right
just stay
back
in
at
touch.
you, girl.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect.
Yes, please do.
Yes.
Please.
And everybody else, please follow along next time.
You bet you should.